On January 13, 2010, in the quiet suburban neighborhood of Conyers, Georgia, an unimaginable horror unfolded behind the doors of an otherwise peaceful home. 34-year-old Jasmiyah Yvonne Nikki Whitehead was found brutally murdered in her bathroom, the scene so gruesome that even seasoned investigators were left shaken. Blood splattered the walls, evidence of a prolonged and desperate struggle. She had been beaten, stabbed over 80 times, and left to die in what should have been the safety of her own home. The brutality of the crime raised immediate questions. Who could have harbored such rage against a woman known for her vibrant personality and loving nature? Was this the work of an intruder in a robbery gone horribly wrong? Or was the killer someone she knew, someone with a personal vendetta simmering beneath the surface? As police combed through the evidence, they uncovered a tangled web of secrets, hidden tensions, and shocking revelations that would leave everyone stunned. This is the heartbreaking and deeply unsettling story of a mother's love, a troubled family, and a crime that shocked an entire nation. Jasmiyah Yvonne Nikki Whitehead was born in 1975 in Georgia. Raised primarily by her strict but loving grandmother, Della Frazier, Nikki was instilled with discipline and a strong sense of independence from an early age. Della was a firm but caring woman, known in her community for her wisdom and resilience. She took on the responsibility of raising Nikki with the hope of giving her a structured, stable upbringing. Growing up in the southern suburbs of Georgia, Nikki's childhood was filled with both challenges and aspirations. She was naturally ambitious, always dreaming of a life filled with glamour and success. As a young girl, she admired strong, independent women and envisioned herself as one day becoming someone who could inspire others. Della encouraged Nikki's ambition, but she also emphasized the importance of hard work, discipline, and perseverance. During her teenage years, Nikki discovered a passion for hairstyling and beauty. She was vibrant, fashionable, and had a magnetic personality that made her a natural in the beauty industry. She practiced tirelessly, often styling her friends and family members, and it wasn't long before her talent turned into a profession. She gained a loyal clientele, with people drawn not only to her skills, but also to her warm and engaging nature. Nikki had a way of making everyone feel special, her bright personality lighting up every room she entered. However, life was not always kind to Nikki. At the age of 18, she became a young mother when she gave birth to identical twin daughters, Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah. The responsibility of raising two children on her own was overwhelming, but Nikki was determined to provide them with a life full of love and opportunities. Balancing motherhood with her growing career was a challenge, but she never lost sight of her dreams. She poured all of her energy into her daughters, wanting to give them the stability and success she had long desired for herself. Despite her best efforts, stability was often out of reach for Nikki. She moved around frequently, trying to find the right environment for her and her girls. The financial burdens of single motherhood weighed heavily on her, and she often relied on her grandmother, Della, to help raise Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah. Della, having already raised Nikki, embraced the role of caretaker once again, ensuring the twins had a sense of security and discipline. For a while, this arrangement worked. Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah flourished under their great-grandmother's guidance. They were bright, academically gifted, and involved in activities such as Girl Scouts. But as they grew older, their relationship with Nikki became strained. They saw her as more of an older sister than a mother, and as they transitioned into their teenage years, the tension between them only grew stronger. Arguments became frequent, and their once close bond began to fracture. By the time the twins were 13, their relationship with Nikki had deteriorated to the point where intervention was needed. Conflicts often turned physical, and family members grew concerned about the explosive nature of their household. The once loving mother-daughter dynamic had turned into a battleground, filled with resentment, rebellion, and unchecked anger. As tensions mounted, Nikki fought to regain control as their mother, but the more she tried to impose discipline, the more resistance she faced. The courts eventually intervened, ruling that the twins should live with their great-grandmother, Della, for a period of time. This temporary separation was meant to ease tensions, but it also created a deeper divide between Nikki and her daughters. Still, Nikki never gave up on trying to mend their relationship. She wanted to be a mother to Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah, to rebuild what had been lost. She longed to be the mother they needed, to guide them through life's challenges. And so, in early 2010, after years of tension and court-ordered separation, Nikki was given another chance. The twins were ordered to move back in with her for a 2-week trial period, a chance for them to reconnect, to heal, and to finally find peace. But what was meant to be a fresh start would instead become the darkest chapter in their lives. On January 13, 2010, the tranquility of Conyers, Georgia, was shattered. That afternoon, a frantic 911 call came in from the Whitehead residence. The voices on the other end belonged to Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah, hysterical as they claimed they had come home from school to find their mother dead. When police arrived, they found a gruesome crime scene that spoke of unimaginable violence. Nikki Whitehead's lifeless body was sprawled in the bathroom, submerged in a pool of her own blood. She had been savagely beaten with a vase and stabbed over 80 times. The sheer brutality of the attack indicated an explosion of rage. This was not a quick or calculated execution, but a prolonged assault filled with deep emotion. Defensive wounds on her arms suggested a desperate struggle, proving that Nikki had fought fiercely for her life. Blood trails extended from the bathroom to other rooms in the house, signaling that Nikki had tried to escape her attacker, but was ultimately overpowered. Investigators immediately noted that there were no signs of forced entry. Nothing appeared to be stolen, and the home did not show the typical signs of a break-in. This led authorities to a chilling conclusion. The murderer had likely been someone Nikki knew, someone she had allowed inside willingly. As detectives interviewed neighbors, friends, and family, a different narrative began to take shape. Nikki had been terrified in the days leading up to her death. She had confided in close friends about escalating tensions at home, describing violent arguments and outbursts. Her concerns were brushed off by some as typical family struggles, but to those closest to her, there was a growing fear that something terrible was brewing beneath the surface. As police turned their focus to Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah, their suspicions grew. The twins' behavior was erratic. They were sobbing one moment and eerily calm the next. Their accounts of what happened that day were filled with inconsistencies. First, they claimed to have arrived home from school and found their mother dead. Later, their timelines shifted, and their emotions seemed rehearsed. As investigators pieced together the evidence, all signs pointed back to Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah Whitehead. However, there was no immediate arrest. The police needed to be sure. This was a shocking accusation, one that required airtight evidence. Over the next several months, detectives kept a close watch on the twins, scrutinizing their behavior and gathering more evidence. They brought them in for further questioning multiple times, hoping to catch any inconsistencies in their stories. Each time, the sisters maintained their innocence, insisting they had returned home from school to find their mother dead. However, their body language told a different story. The twins exhibited strange, erratic behavior, crying hysterically one moment and showing a chilling detachment the next. They over-explained minor details but glossed over critical moments. The inconsistencies continued to pile up, and investigators were certain they were hiding something. Then, forensic evidence sealed their fate. The bite marks on Nikki's body were conclusively linked to the twins, and blood spatter analysis revealed that the crime scene had been staged. The walls told a story that the twins couldn't erase. On May 21, 2010, 4 months after Nikki's murder, Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah Whitehead were officially arrested. They were charged with their mother's brutal slaying and taken into custody. Initially, the sisters continued to deny any involvement. They screamed, cried, and insisted they were being wrongly accused. The act was convincing, almost too convincing. But the detectives remained patient, knowing that the truth would eventually emerge. As the hours ticked by, their stories began to unravel. The twins contradicted themselves under pressure, their carefully rehearsed accounts falling apart with each passing question. They accused each other of lying, became agitated, and grew visibly exhausted. Then came the breaking point. After hours of relentless questioning, Jasmiyah finally broke down. In a shaky voice, she muttered the words that would change everything. It wasn't supposed to happen like that.
Twin sisters accused of an unthinkable crime, killing their own mother. Conyers police say they took Tasmiyah and Jasmiyah Whitehead into custody Friday morning. The arrests come 4 months after 34-year-old Jarmika Nikki Whitehead was killed in her Appaloosa Way home.
Detectives leaned in. What wasn't supposed to happen? Tasmiyah, visibly distressed, lowered her head as tears streamed down her face. And in a chilling confession, the truth finally came out. The morning of January 13, 2010, had started like any other, except tensions were already running high. The twins had resented being forced back into their mother's home, and that resentment had been bubbling under the surface for weeks. On that fateful morning, Nikki woke the twins up, urging them to get ready for school. But they weren't in the mood to listen. An argument erupted, one of many that had plagued their household. But this time it spiraled out of control. Nikki had attempted to discipline the girls, and in a fit of rage, the confrontation turned violent. Years of pent-up anger, defiance, and resentment exploded in that moment. Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah lashed out, and Nikki fought back with everything she had. The struggle was intense. Nikki managed to bite one of the girls in an effort to defend herself, but she was outnumbered. They grabbed a vase and struck her, sending her crashing to the floor. Still, she fought. The bathroom became a war zone, a brutal scene of a mother fighting for her life against the daughters she had raised. Then, the stabbing began. Overcome with fury, the twins grabbed a knife and took turns plunging it into their mother's body. The rage was uncontrollable, and by the time the attack ended, Nikki lay motionless, her body covered in wounds. As the blood pooled around them, the reality of what they had done began to sink in. The twins panicked. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. They had acted in blind rage, and now they were left with an unthinkable crime scene. Instead of calling the police immediately, they decided to cover their tracks. They washed the blood off their bodies, changed their clothes, and attempted to clean up the scene. They staged the house to make it appear as though someone had broken in and attacked their mother while they were at school. Then, they left the house and went to school as if nothing had happened. Hours later, they returned home and made the 911 call, pretending to be distraught daughters who had just discovered their mother's body. But no amount of acting could erase the forensic evidence, the inconsistencies in their stories, or the truth that had already been written in blood. After their confessions, Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah Whitehead were formally charged with voluntary manslaughter. What followed was a highly publicized legal battle that gripped the nation and sent shockwaves through the community of Conyers, Georgia. The trial process was drawn out over several years, as the defense team initially attempted to argue that the confessions were coerced. The twins' attorneys pushed for leniency, citing their troubled upbringing and the emotional and physical abuse they allegedly endured. However, the prosecution countered with the brutal details of Nikki Whitehead's murder, highlighting the overwhelming forensic evidence and the sheer violence inflicted upon the victim. The courtroom was packed during every hearing, with members of the public, media representatives, and loved ones of Nikki Whitehead eager to witness the unfolding drama. Many were in disbelief that two teenage girls, who had once been bright students and Girl Scouts, could have committed such an unspeakable crime. The prosecution painted a grim picture of the events leading up to Nikki's murder. Prosecutors detailed how the twins had a history of violent altercations with their mother and had been sent to live with their great-grandmother due to their rebellious behavior. They argued that when the court mandated them to move back in with Nikki, their resentment exploded into an uncontrollable rage, leading to the brutal attack. District Attorney Richard Reed emphasized the forensic evidence, particularly the bite marks on Nikki's body that matched the twins. He also highlighted their inconsistent statements, their staged crime scene, and their callous attempt to cover up the murder by going to school as if nothing had happened. One of the most chilling moments of the trial was when the court replayed Jasmiyah's taped confession, where she admitted in a broken voice, "It wasn't supposed to happen like that." The jury listened in stunned silence as the sisters' own words revealed the horror of that morning. The defense team tried to shift the narrative, arguing that the twins acted in self-defense. Their attorneys claimed that Nikki had a volatile temper and that years of physical and emotional abuse had culminated in a deadly confrontation. They alleged that Nikki had instigated the fight that morning, and the girls, overwhelmed with fear and anger, lashed out in a moment of uncontrollable emotion. Psychologists were brought in as expert witnesses, testifying that years of strained relationships and unresolved trauma had led to a moment of temporary insanity. They argued that the attack was not premeditated, but rather a tragic explosion of deeply rooted emotional distress. Throughout the trial, the courtroom witnessed emotional testimonies from family members, former teachers, and friends. Nikki's grandmother, Della Frazier, broke down in tears as she spoke about raising the twins and how she had never imagined they could be capable of such a crime.
I know she wanted the best for her kids, and she tried to do the best that she could.
"I lost my granddaughter and my great-granddaughters in one moment," she sobbed.
It's a very hard day because, as I said, those girls lived in my home most of their lives, and also their mom too.
encapsulating the heartbreak felt by so many. The case also sparked heated debates in the media and among psychologists. Was this a case of parental abuse and self-defense gone too far, or was it a calculated, cold-blooded murder? The discussions divided public opinion, with some sympathizing with the twins and others calling for the harshest punishment possible. In early 2014, after years of legal proceedings, both Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah Whitehead pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter and false imprisonment as part of a plea deal. The deal spared them a potential life sentence, but the judge made it clear that their actions were inexcusable. Each of the twins was sentenced to 30 years in prison. As the verdict was read, there was little reaction from Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah. The once defiant teenagers now sat solemnly, their fates sealed. Jasmiyah and Tasmiyah Whitehead are currently serving their sentences in separate Georgia correctional facilities. Reports indicate that they have adjusted to prison life, though they remain under close watch due to the nature of their crime.